Welcome. I'm really pleased to have you here. Um, Nearly 4 years ago, I drove up the driveway, which was a lot rougher in those days, and I looked out and I just fell in love with this place because of the view. The soil is very rich. We've got wonderful rainfall. And so it was quite a difficult time in the beginning because it was just weed. It was nothing. There was heaps of rocks and heaps of logs, and thanks to a lot of woofers and backpackers, we got through it. A fellow called Lutz Schiffer was my first person, and he and I for 3 months pulled fireweed. So it was just bags and bags and bags of fireweed all over the place. So in honour of Lutz Schiffer, this is called Schiffer's Forest. And Lutz's lane goes through the middle here. So it's been a long journey with lots of wonderful, wonderful people. I'm passionate about sustainability because where I grew up, the closest neighbour was like 1 kilometre away, and the closest town was an hour away. So you had to grow your own food. It was just what you did. And you had to collect your own water, and you had a wood stove, and the wood stove heated the water, you cooked with it, you kept warm with it. So it's been ingrained in me to actually think about what we're doing with the earth and think about how we can actually live more sustainably without putting pressure on the earth. I also think that COVID-19 has actually brought that home to a lot of us. We now realise that a lot of the products we consume come from overseas, and we understand how far away a lot of our food comes. As soon as you pick an orange, you lose 30% within the first day of the vitamin C. So when you have oranges stored in a cool room for half a year, there's not much left there other than the juice, which doesn't have a lot in it. A lot of sugar, but not much else. I think also I'm looking for a space that was drought proof, because where I grew up, we regularly, well not regularly, but we did have droughts, and I just hated the way it affected the animals. So I bought here and I love it, and I hope you've all enjoyed the little tour you had before. I think the bushfires and the storms that we've had recently actually indicate that there is something going on. We can't just keep on thinking that we can have monocultures where you have rows upon rows upon rows for acres of the same food and then pour in petrochemical fertilisers and think everything's hunky-dory. Because the dust is the topsoil. When the rivers flow and they're brown, that is our topsoil. And that is the money in farming. That is where the nutrients are, or should be. So I think permaculture is it's actually a system of ethical beliefs of care for people, care for the earth, and share the surplus. And in the process, you have to think about what is it that you want to leave behind. Do you want to leave behind bare ground and no topsoil? You think in a design of the whole place. So everything here has been designed, first of all, to slow down the water, because Tweed, when it's in flood and it's going out into the ocean, it's a big brown plume there. If you let that water just pour off the land, which it used to, it's taking with it the topsoil. So we've put in swales. I don't know if you've noticed where all the little tree lines are, they're a swale. What a swale does, it's on contour, so the water comes down and it creates this little dam, so the water stops, sinks into the ground. Now, this location gets 1.5 metres of water. If we got that water in one day, we'd be up to here in water over the whole block of land. So the place where you want to store your water is in the ground. So if you slow it down, you've got a chance of getting that water into the ground. If you don't have water, you don't have anything. You have air plants, but you don't have anything to actually grow food with. You need water and you need soil, obviously. So permaculture gave me a system whereby I could keep that water on the ground because I don't have a creek running through here. I've only got the rainfall. So what we do is we collect it into tanks, pump it to the top of the hill with a solar pump, and it's stored up there so that the water can come back down and irrigate the rest of the farm. You don't have to have pumps pumping water all the time. The gravity feeds it. It's better for the environment. The other system I've used here is syntropic farming. Syntropic farming is a mimic of the forest. When you go into a rainforest, the first thing you notice how cool and damp it is. Now, the reason why it's cool and damp is because of the trees. The trees take and reflect the sun back, and it's damp because trees actually give off moisture overnight. They transpire. So you can harvest that water by keeping it away from wind or keeping wind away from it, and you create this beautiful, humid environment for plants to grow. So the syntropic system is you plant trees from tall eucalypts all the way down, your pawpaws, your bananas. Over there at the moment I've got cassava and rosellas and daikon, and it goes down into the ground. So you will have gingers and turmerics, and there'll even be plants in there that you won't know they're there, but when they come into season, up they come, and then you can harvest after that. So for example, there's yacon over there, which is like a South American sweet potato. It just sits dormant. You don't even know it's there, but then up come the leaves. A few months later, you can start to harvest. The idea is you don't take everything. It's not like monoculture. In monoculture, if you're growing potatoes, you take every potato, every leaf, and take it off the farm. So any nutrients that that soil gave to that plant, you've just taken it away. You've taken the nutrient bank and reduced it. And if you do that enough, you end up with particles, but you don't end up with nutrients. So in syntropic, the other part about it is you grow plants to feed the soil. In there, you grow plants to feed yourself. You grow flowers to feed the insects. You take care of everything that needs to live on this land to make a crop grow. You don't, so the difference between monoculture is you're robbing the soil. In syntropic farming, you're feeding the soil. That's your primary objective. Feed the soil, it'll feed the microbes, and that will feed the plants, and that will feed you. If you don't, you end up with just a desert. And that's what's happened to a lot of the country in the world now. They're estimating that 30% of all agricultural land has been lost in the last 30 years. And that's through deforestation. That's not even through deforestation. They're saying that from erosion. So the other method I use is organic farming. The reason why I chose organic farming is because pesticides, herbicides, even if they say glyphosates, once they hit the ground, they become inert, they're still in the ground. They're in our watering system. We're drinking it because a lot of our water, where does it come from? It's got to come from, in some cases, groundwater. So I don't want to kill all the insects. Sometimes I do, don't I? No, the idea is you don't kill all the insects. You don't kill the grass. When you have a monoculture, what they do is they go through and they spray the glyphosate, and then behind that, they're planting the seed. And then when they harvest it, they spray the glyphosate, and then they harvest the rice or the wheat or whatever it is with the glyphosate on it. And so I believe that is really being detrimental to our health. and to the health of the soil, because it kills everything, not just the grass that's there. So the last method I've used is holistic management. And what holistic management does is you're asked a number of questions. What is most important to you? And it can be whatever it is that's most important to you. And what do you want in your life? So that you think about what's most important, what do I want my life to look like, and what do you want to leave behind? So every time you make a decision, you ask yourself those questions, and it points you in the direction of what your goal is. In my case, to live in harmony with nature, restore water, biodiversity in the soil and the environment and life. Now, it can be whatever you want, but if you're running a business, if you ask those questions of yourself regularly enough, you will take the direction towards those. So in some businesses, the answer might be we want to make the biggest profit. Or it might be we actually want to make a sustainable profit and have a sustainable workforce and have sustainable waste control. And I believe that society is moving towards answering those questions in an ethical way, more so than in my time in business. So that is the principles behind the farm. I like to live sustainably. It was great because I took care of all my waste, all my energy, all my water, and lived so that during the nighttime you would actually see the stars, see the moon. You would know when it was full moon. You would see the sunrise. You would hear the ducks first thing in the morning. The wild ducks would come across with their little babies. A story. There is a tree in here that has a hollow about this height in the tree trunk down to the ground. The mother duck flew, I didn't realise, I'll tell you what happened, but the mother duck, she flew into that hole, lay 6 eggs. A number of weeks later, she got those chicks out of that hole, up out of the tree, plop on the ground, and then the parents waddled over to the dam over there, and that's where they lived. I couldn't believe that an animal would have so much love and compassion, because she knew if she was in there, she wasn't going to be attacked. So everything seems to take care of their own. They don't just think, oh, this is good for me, bugger off you. Animals actually look after each other. The alpacas, you'll hear if there's something, the top male alpaca, he'll squeal so that everybody in that herd knows there's danger. So listening to Victor this morning, I was actually really humbled because he means it when he says he belongs to this earth. He means it that we're going to look after it, and we need to. And so that's partially the reason why I'm here. Simple ways. Well, first of all, food. Wars are created over food. Syria, what happened in Egypt, in Libya, in Sudan, are all linked back to food crises. And so we have to look after the soil from a world point of view. From a personal point of view, if you're eating food and there's no nutrients and it's full of toxins, you're going to end up with severe chronic disease. It's not going to kill you today or tomorrow, but give it 4 or 5 years, you will start to see symptoms that you go, and doctors think, what on earth's this? There's no, you're okay, but it's from eating food that is full of toxin basically and no nutrients. For example, my eggs, I have a number of women who want the organic egg because when they find they don't eat organic eggs, they have an allergic reaction. Their children have an allergic reaction. I've got one girl in particular, she comes out in a huge rash as soon as she doesn't eat organic eggs. that people are allergic to bread. It's the glyphosate on the grain. It's the fact they haven't taken the whole grain, because on the outside of the grain is magnesium, which helps you actually digest the gluten. So what they do is they take the protein off and give it to the pigs. They take the next bit off and burn that. They then leave you with the starch, and you can't digest it. And that, there are celiacs, I'm not saying there's not celiacs, but there's, with our food, unless we eat the whole thing, we're not actually being able to digest it. We were designed to eat the whole of our plant, not just part. Luan will take you for a little walk later and show you how easy it is to actually get some really good nutrients just browsing around. So with soil, if you've got your own little patch, I don't know, do any of you have little garden beds and things? Great, great. So it's really simple to do. You can take a section of land, put down cardboard, then lay, if you've got grass or leaves, any sort, and then if you can get some manure, and just keep on building that up over depends on how much you've got, but over a period of time you will make excellent soil. Put your eggshells, put your coffee. Coffee is amazing. Everything, all your scraps, put them underneath and let it sit. Then you can grow anything, seeds, anything. Mulch it well. When I say mulch it well, I mean like this, because what the mulch does is it's the blanket. The sun in Australia is very intense, so you don't want to have the sun on the ground like here. This shouldn't be like this. Nothing's going to grow there. Well, a weed will, because a weed will tell me this is terrible, do something about it. And that's part of permaculture too. Weeds are part of permaculture. They are indicating to us it's too poor, the land hasn't got enough nutrient in it, or it's got too much nutrient, or it's too wet. And so it helps you read and observe your land. You leave your weeds until you've got a better use for it, because there's no sense me going down and just chopping out all that barna grass, although Taiho has asked himself, why do we do this, until I'm ready to do something with it, because it'll just take over again. So it's about looking at what you want to do with your land and biting off what you're going to be able to chew. Look at your time. Look at what you like to eat. No use growing radishes if you don't like them. Is that my time signal? Yeah, is it? No. Yes, finish up? Okay. So all the other things that are really important are your water, your soil, the sun. We need to harvest the sun. And to do that, you need to plant plants. Plants will cool the earth. Plants will give you food. I think farming is a fantastic way to spend your retirement.
And your youth. Yes, and your youth. I guess I just wanted to briefly ask Mum, so for people who live in apartments like myself, what's some hot tips of like,
well,
bringing down that green waste, carbon emission, etc.?
Very easy. Most of you will know this. You know, you have your little worm.
Don't have a worm farm. What can you do?
If you don't have a worm farm, just get a bucket and put another bucket inside, and you put a tap into the side of the bucket so you can drain off the worm tea, which is liquid gold. You put into there a little the top bucket, a few pebbles. Then you put a tiny bit of soil, a little bit of manure if you can, and then you just keep on shoving your waste in there. Over the top, a piece of cardboard or a piece of carpet, put the lid on. And just each day, adding brown as well as your rubbish. So, and if you get too much, well, just have another one. And that becomes compost and is fantastic for your soil. So if you've then got maybe a little, not a sleeper bed, help me, planter box, you can use that direct as your soil and then mulch over the top of that. And planter boxes like this can grow enough greens. So other simple techniques, like sprouts. Soak your seeds for a day, 2 days, then just rinse them, every day, 5 days, you'll have sprouts. The best protein you could get because it's direct from the seed. There's, yes.
There'll be lots of time to ask lots of questions.
Thank you, everyone.